Drone supply chain has been a very big topic of discussion lately. What does that mean? How many global components? How many US components? And Hylio today in 2025 is much closer to that true component level manufacturer. I mean, our full-time engineers at Hylio designing these things from the ground up. Out of 1,460 total parts on the Aries, less than 2% of the components are Chinese. We believe that working with them, we can actually create a non-Chinese battery supply chain source. Hi everyone, my name is Arthur Erickson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Hylio. Hylio started back in 2015, so the company is about 11 years old, and we are proudly based in Texas, where we design, build, and then offer our drone solutions. So primarily our drones are used in the agricultural space, but of course we make a bunch of drones for a variety of applications in other industrial verticals. Drone supply chain has been a very big topic of discussion lately in the space, and it is the topic of today's video. So I think with a lot of the stuff going on the government level and possible bans and restrictions of foreign-made drones, there's been a lot of questions about where our drone technology comes from. And of course, here at Hylio, we get similar questions, so I thought it would be useful if I just made one video to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit and let people watching, customers of ours, or people interested in our drones or our company, let them understand just what goes into making one of our drone products. So I think people watching the video might be surprised to see just how much goes into it and how much Hylio actually designs and manufactures in-house or with our contract manufacturing partners that are either US or allied sourced or located, I should say. So I've got about 60 or 70 of, let's say, the more interesting Hylio components that go into the Aries product that we sell. That's our new flagship drone that we launched this year. So there are over 1,000 parts in total on the Aries kit. I should say, yeah, in the Aries product in total. And this is, of course, a just representative sample. Like I said, the more interesting components. Most of those components in that full list are screws, pieces of plastic, carbon fiber, mounting things, inert components, more or less, that are important but less interesting to talk about. And in that list of, let's say, about 1,400 overall parts, there's about 360 unique SKUs. So I've represented a lot of the important unique SKUs right here on this table for us to chat about. Before we dive into that, though, actually, the first part of this video, I want to be a brief history lesson and catch-up for what and who Hylio is. And so by that, I mean, where did Hylio start about 11 years ago? And in that case, we were, I would best describe us as a system designer and system integrator, and then how we evolved over the years to be what we are now, which is what I would say is a true manufacturer from beginning to end of the entire product stack. So both hardware and software at the component level, we design and control that supply chain entirely. And so I want to go into a bit about how we got there and some of the decisions we made along the way and where the future is going for us as well. It's helpful if I explain a bit the difference between a system integrator and a true component level manufacturer. And Hylio today in 2025 is much closer to that true component level manufacturer than system integrator, but this is a scale. There's no American company right now that is truly 100% all a component level manufacturer. There's elements of system integration in any company, so that includes Ford with their car products, Tesla with their cars, SpaceX with their rockets, Lockheed Martin in the defense sector. So that's a good example, actually. Lockheed Martin, the way they operate typically on most of their projects and products is as a system integrator. So Lockheed Martin is the company that gets the contract for the F-35, for example, but they have Raytheon doing the radars. They have L3 Harris doing communications. They have Pratt & Whitney making the engine for the F-35. And of course, Lockheed Martin is the leadership role, so they're working with these vendors and these suppliers and making sure all their parts are up to spec for the ultimate performance of the system. So on this sliding scale, you could say Lockheed Martin is closer to a system integrator than it is a component level manufacturer. And similarly, Hylio, for the first 5 years or so of its existence, again, we're an 11-year-old company that started in 2015. So up until 2020, 2021, we were closer to that side of the scale than the true manufacturer side. But right around there, 2020, 2021, when we started to bring a lot more of the design at the component level in-house, then we shifted over, so past that halfway point, and now I would say we're pretty close to the other end of the spectrum now, where we're designing the majority of our avionics, the majority of our physical frame, and really the majority of the entire system itself is designed in-house, and we leverage contract manufacturers and do some manufacturing in-house in this building as well to create the entire product. So in that sense, we're closer to, let's say, a Tesla or SpaceX, to use two of Elon's companies as examples. They are using contract manufacturers like we are, but they control all the design from the top down and the bottom up. So they're designing the boards, exactly what components go into these printed circuit boards, the specs of the motors, the design of the motors, all of that they're doing in-house with their engineering team, just like we are, including the software as well. And then they're going out and finding the most competitive and the most high quality suppliers to actually build these components out for them and work with them very closely to create their finished products. So that is a brief explanation of how Hylio evolved from its back in our AG series days. So again, for the first 5 or 6 years of the company, products like the AG210 behind me, the AG216, 230, 272, we were doing a lot more system integration. It was still our overall product design and system design, but we were buying a lot of off-the-shelf components to make the products function. And that's because, of course, that's a function of our size as a company, our engineering staff, our bandwidth, our resources. Now that we've grown into a true component level manufacturer with the Aries, the first of the HYL series, but we've got the Photon and the Pegasus and the Atlas coming out in the HYL series as well. They all share a common design and manufacturing architecture and plan like the Aries, wherein we are designing things from the board and component level all the way up and controlling the quality, the cost, and ultimately we control the supply chain, and we work with a variety of vendors strategically to ensure that we have affordable, reliable parts at any moment. So for this video, when I say design at the component level, I mean literally our full-time engineers at Hylio designing these things from the ground up. This is actually happening within Hylio. It's our IP, we own all of it. So they're using programs like Altium or SolidWorks to design the printed circuit boards and the physical structure and mechanical components of the Aries and the other HYL series drones that we have coming out soon. So this is a full design, engineering, and manufacturing company now. It's not just that system integrator, it's everything from top to bottom. So we've got more than 20 full-time engineers and developers that are building out from the design level all of our technology that goes into our products. These are American engineers and developers, but they do really good work, and we control all the quality because these are our designs. We put exactly what we want into the boards, exactly what we want into the physical attributes of the frame, so the thickness, the material chosen, all of that is fine-tuned to work perfectly with our system to deliver a really optimal end result. So behind me, I have two of our drone models. To my right is the AG210, and to my left is the new Aries HYL 150. So in a lot of ways, these two drones behind me represent, in a really visible way, the evolution of our company from system integrator to true manufacturer, which is what the Aries product and our future products represent. So 11 years ago, when we started Hylio, me and my 3 co-founders, we were a small company. It was just us 4 and a handful of initial employees. We were very technically minded people, engineers, developer backgrounds. So we knew what we want to build, but with limited team, limited bandwidth, and limited time and resources, we were operating as a system integrator, as I've mentioned. So how did that actually look in practice? Now, with the AG210, for example, and the other drones in the AG series, at first we went online and just said, hey, what are the different components that we could put together here to deliver the end product and the end result we want? So we were using, for example, as many off-the-shelf components as possible. The flight controller was an H7, first the orange version, and then later the H7 blue cube flight controller that came out. And then there was the HearLink system for the transmitter and the receiver. That's for the radio control link and the FPV. There was Here 3 GPSs, RF Design, a company in Australia, made the radios, the RFD 900s. That was the system we had designed for the AG series drones. And also, in addition to that, we used the frame hardware from a variety of different suppliers, mostly Chinese-based. So the actual body of the drone, the carbon fiber, the plastic, and the motors and the spray equipment was from these Chinese vendors. But when you looked at the overall BOM cost And even by part count, by SKU count, that was still a relative minority versus all the Western and allied parts, which were the majority of the unique count SKUs and cost of the entire systems, even back when we were system integrators with the AG series of drones. Now, conversely, looking at the Ares, the first of the HYL series, and its future other HYL series counterparts, that is completely designed 100% in-house. So this airframe, the plastic, the carbon fiber, the aluminum you see, you're not going to see any other airframe out there on the market, Chinese or otherwise, that looks anything close to this. I mean, this is designed completely in-house. There was no licensing with any other companies. It's a 100% in-house Hylio design. So that goes for the Ares again, but also the Pegasus, the Photon, and the Atlas we have coming out, and any future products for that matter. So the AG210 was one of our first products we launched in, I believe, 2019. And for its time and for what it is, it's a great product. We have since discontinued it. We no longer offer this. We still support existing customers that have them. But this is like I said, a model that's about 6 years old at this point. And it has a 2.5 gallon payload. It can treat, let's say, about 15 acres per hour versus our Ares, which we launched this year, which is now our new flagship product with a 13 gallon payload, 110 pound lift capacity, and capability to treat up to 70 acres per hour based on your dosage and what you're spraying. When we were a system integrator and a system designer, the AG210 and similar AG series models is what we produced and offered to the market. And again, great products, but of course we were held back to a certain degree because as a system integrator, there were some parts of the components and the overall performance that we couldn't control because as a system integrator, we were choosing and purchasing components and doing quality assurance checks and then putting them all together to offer a complete streamlined package. Now with the Ares, we have total control. Back to what I said earlier, as a true manufacturer, we stepped into our own with the Ares and other HYL series drones that we're launching this and next year by saying, hey, if we could take all of our 11 years of lessons learned and hard work and blood, sweat, and tears and feedback from customers and put it into a product, what would it look like? And furthermore, could we design and own the supply chain on every component? And if not every component, could we do as many of them as possible? So that's what the Ares is. And all these parts that I've introduced on the table in front of me are components to the Ares system. So diving into these components in context of the Ares, we're going to see just how much Hylio actually does design and control all of the internal components, even the complicated ones. These are all things that actually Hylio designs. And we're going to dive into just what that looks like and how we work with contract manufacturers in the West, typically in the US or allied countries, to supply these parts at affordable prices and reliably. So if you go to the Hylio website, you'll see something that says US made with US and global components. A lot of people ask, what does that mean? How many global components? How many US components? This video hopefully will shed a lot of light into that exact question. So according to the FTC, you are not allowed to say US made on its own unless virtually every single component or part on your product is made on US soil. So that is not the case for any modern electronic device such as a drone or a cell phone or even most of the cars we drive these days. In fact, I should say all of them, because there is a global supply chain and frankly, not one single company can make every single component in these complicated electromechanical systems. So you have to make what's called a qualified statement, which we do. So that's US made with US and global components. But in this video, you're going to see that really it is a lot of US components. And if they are global components, they are typically from friendly nations, so Mexico, Canada, or some friendly Asian nations predominantly. And we have very few in terms of cost and SKU count components from China. So in front of me, finally, I've got all of these Ares components. So I'm going to pick up a few of these, talk about why we designed them the way we did, what are they in the first place, who we get them from, so on and so forth. So we'll start here. The one thing I'm pretty proud of, it's nothing super complicated, but this is the Hylio motherboard that we designed in-house. And just like you have in your gaming computer, for example, it really is just a convenient and organized way to plug everything, all your components into the machine. So this doesn't seem like a huge deal. Seems like this is something we should have had from the beginning. But again, that's part of going from a system integrator to a manufacturer. We could actually design this board from the ground up and say, hey, for these 20 avionics components that we know that we're going to utilize in our system, what is the cleanest, most efficient way to actually wire them and plug them into the drone for easy access and easy manufacture. So we make this in-house. This motherboard, along with many of the PCBs you see in front of me, so printed circuit boards, are made from a variety of vendors. We actually have a vendor right here in Houston that we're very proud to call one of our partners. Their company is called Macrofab. So they are just 40 minutes down the road, not only US made, but actually local to us here in the Houston area. So Macrofab makes a lot of these boards for us. We also have other suppliers in India and Vietnam. Back to the conversation about having supply chain redundancy. We typically actually like to source a fair amount from Macrofab in Houston, but also from India and Vietnam, and we balance out the tariffs and other factors like that by having this diversified supply chain. So as you can see, none of these PCBs come from China. None come from any covered entities. In fact, we get the majority from Macrofab, and that goes again for the motherboard, but really all these PCBs you see right here. So I'll go into a few more of these other ones. You've got, oh, this is a cool one here. This is the Hylio GPS unit. Again, made by these suppliers I mentioned here in the States, Vietnam, India. But we designed this because this one actually goes into one of our handheld tracker units, but we have similar units that go into our drones now. But having the total control over the GPS unit, refresh rates for data, and just communication protocol was really important to make sure that it worked optimally with our ground link and our radio systems that we utilized for just total optimized communication, especially at long distances when there's interference and other things like that. So having total control of the data stream was really important to us, and quality in general. So really proud that we introduced our own GPSs, and along those lines, there is the Hylio radar. So the Hylio radar, I'm really proud of as well, because we previously used off-the-shelf radars, and while they worked, for sure there was instances where they didn't see something that we really thought they should have, or really we didn't have a lot of control over the data itself and the ability to filter it. So while the commercial off-the-shelf radars we used to use were basically just binary, they either saw something or they didn't in the entire field of view. With these radars, which we make using a Texas Instruments radar chip, so Texas Instruments, another Texas-based company headquartered up in Dallas, we put that onto a board that we designed and get fabbed by Macrofab. Actually, all the radars typically come from Macrofab here in Houston. So this is a completely Texas-made, Texas-designed by Hylio, and then Texas-manufactured radar board. This board itself gives us total control over the different zones of the beamform. So as the radar's mounted on the drone and the drone's flying along, there's actually multiple sectors that we could divide. We could say one sector is below the drone, one sector is kind of in the middle, the midplane of the drone, another sector is above the drone, and we can actually further subdivide that if we wanted to. But this lets you do fancy things like filter out the stuff underneath the drone if you think that's just the radar seeing the ground. You don't want the drone to stutter and exhibit behavior like that. So you can filter that out while also having good data and clean data for actually seeing and avoiding obstacles such as power lines or tree branches, even thin things. So this can see down to the millimeter level. So even thin power lines, it can pick up. Of course, that does depend a bit on signal to noise ratio and just how busy the environment is. But you can see really precise results with these radars that we designed. And again, with the TI, Texas Instruments chip on there, it's a very impressive piece of hardware. Another really important component that's often overlooked is the PDB. So this is the power distribution board on our Ares unit. Again, something we designed in-house as Hylio. Now, when you're buying commercial off-the-shelf products, often what happens is they're really not rated for the abuse that agricultural drones like ours get put through. So especially in high heat environments down here in Texas, but in the South in general, I mean, all over the country in the middle of summer, it's very hot operating environments. If you're running batteries that are a little older, if your motors are a little worn, you're going to be pulling more and more current, especially as the day goes on and everything's hot. So if you don't have a beefy enough PDB that's designed right, you're going to run into issues where you might have it literally burn out. And you see this in some of the other manufacturers in the space. They're just really not beefy enough to handle the currents and the heat that go on in our industry. So we made the PDB plenty beefy, and it is extremely reliable versus the off-the-shelf components that we used to utilize. Along those lines, you've actually got the Hylio BECs. So these are battery eliminating circuits, and these essentially get a higher voltage. So whatever's coming off the batteries, which is typically like in the 60 to 70 volt range, and it converts it down to a usable voltage for various subcomponents and avionics on the drone. So this one I'm looking at specifically is our 12 volt. So this will spit out 12 volts, and it does it in a smooth way, right? So utilizing the capacitors and whatnot on board, it's going to ensure that that is a consistent 12 volts despite any fluctuating power coming into it. And again, that's really critical to just consistent, reliable operation of your avionics on board the drone at all times. So as I had mentioned with the PDB, a lot of the off-the-shelf components really just weren't beefy enough, and they weren't quite tuned to our exact application. So we would buy off-the-shelf BECs. This was several years ago, like in our AG series drones, and every once in a while you would have one overheat. Maybe a solder joint was loose or something to that effect, quality issues, and that would result in either some sensors going out on the drone, or in the worst cases, even like a total failure, a crash of the drone, depending on where the BEC was located in the system. So one of those really important but overlooked components, I think, is the BEC along with the power distribution board, and really everything that goes into making the powertrain really smooth, reliable, and rock solid. So we're really happy to have brought all of that in-house as well from a design perspective. And like the other PDBs, it's made either here by Macrofab, Vietnam, India, not Chinese. So let's talk about the ground link. Now this is a really cool system that we actually designed in-house. Just like everything else I'm talking about here, the majority of the things, we designed it in-house, and we get contract manufacturers to build out the boards and the chipsets for us. But it's 100% NDAA compliant, IP67, and it's really a fully working Windows-based computer with joysticks and RC controls built around it. And so what we wanted to do was give people the perfect balance of autonomous control, so the ability to use our Agrosol GCS software along with any other platforms or programs they want to run, including things that are computationally or memory intensive. So you could be doing image stitching and other processes, AI processes on this while you're running our drones. But also you can switch to manual control and use these joysticks and these buttons whenever you need to. And this is swarm capable as well. So you can actually link this up to 3 drones at once, and you could toggle between the 3 of them using the A, B, and C keys here. So for this video though, we're gonna do a deep dive on the design and the construction. So if you see here with the back panel off, you've got the main power board and the chipset here, which is the Intel NUC. So that's NUC, that's a product Intel makes, which is meant for tablet-sized computer devices like this one is. So the NUC is right there, but another really cool thing that the chief engineer at Hylio did for this was he very cleverly routed all the heat away from this main processor to these weather-sealed chambers on the left and right here, and these actually have IP67 fans venting the heat out. So this is how we very cleverly kept the IP67 rating, but had really efficient cooling so that this thing could run even with a bright screen, running a lot of processes out in the hot sun all day, and still maintain really good performance and really good battery life. So that was a really good work by the engineer that designed this here at Hylio named Sarov and his team. And overall, this ground link actually has 9 or 10 different PCBs that Sarov and his team designed for it. So you've got BEC, so battery eliminating circuits. You've got a BMS, so a battery management system that goes along with this power board that just controls the flow of power to and from this battery here throughout the process of operating the ground link. And there's other things like LED controllers here for the various light up functions on the left and right of the ground link here. So the different buttons have different color configurations and LEDs that light up accordingly. And there's, we can take a closer look actually at some of them here. So here's that ground link power board I mentioned. See the big Hylio logo here, but a lot of pins here, caps, resistors, just everything to make sure the power's flowing smoothly. And there's some of these other, like this is right here, a button board. So literally just transferring the signal of the buttons to something that the ground link can read and then act on. Another button board. There's the LED boards I had mentioned. So all these PCBs here that are white colored are for the ground link. So as I had mentioned, there's at least 8 or 9 of these, I believe, in the entire system. So all designed by our team and really fine-tuned to make this ground link as power efficient as possible, but also give it the ability to be really powerful for AI, for image processing, and for command and controlling multiple drones at once. Now, something we don't make, but we're really happy to be working with is the Arc Electronics flight controller. So this is the V6 model, Arc V6X, and this is made from a company called Arc Electronics. These are on the DIU Blue framework, completely NDAA compliant, blue listed, safe to use for any and all US government work. They work pretty damn well. Again, I'm very happy working with Arc Electronics and Alex from that team. So happy to have a US made flight controller commanding the drone on a hardware level. Radio, right now, we utilize something called the MicroHard PMLTE, and this is a company that's based in Canada. So again, NDA compliant on the Blue framework. This is a radio that not only has really good just line of sight radio connectivity, but also it gives you LTE ability. So you can fail over if radio fails, line of sight radio fails, you can switch over to LTE and vice versa at will to optimize your data stream. Okay, so getting into more of the mechanical or electromechanical components, not just the boards and whatnot, we've got something that's important, not necessarily super exciting, but the joints. So on the Ares, for example, this is one of the shoulder joints. A lot of this stuff is made out of aluminum. And so, yeah, this is the shoulder. We actually get this cut. Often, one of our big suppliers for these parts is actually here in not just Houston, but actually in our city. So we live in a suburb of Houston called Richmond, Texas. And there's a company called Gurecki. So shout out to Gurecki. They work with us really closely, and they make a lot of our aluminum CNC cut parts. So we have this. This is another frame component made out of aluminum for the Ares. This is an elbow joint that we get made either by Gurecki. I should add, there are also CNC suppliers in Vietnam and India that we utilize as well for things of this nature. Again, on the basis of our supplier diversification strategy. So aluminum cut landing gear joint. There's on our gimbal, which we designed in-house. It's actually all aluminum in terms of the physical structure of it right now. It is a 3-axis aluminum gimbal with brushless motors integrated into it, and a camera that's made from a company called Econ, which is Indian-based. So this is NDA compliant, not Chinese, Indian-based camera that on the Ares gives you 1080p live video feed for navigation and some light mapping work. There is the spreader unit. This is utilized for granular spreading of material. Now, actually, if you looked at this closely, you would see that it is a nylon PA12 material. There's a company called iSolids in North Houston. Kaysen runs that company, great friend of Hylio, company we've done business with for close to a decade now. They have these amazing multi-jet fusion HP printers that can do this PA12 nylon material. So it's extremely functional, extremely light, and you can create parts with extremely tight tolerances using that function, or that process, I should say. So our spreader unit designed in-house, made by iSolids up in North Houston. And there's a power board in here and some BECs, some BECs that we also designed as well. There are plastic components, which are functional to a certain degree, but mostly cosmetic. So these molds here, this is like the front bottom panel for the Aries, which you see like right, well, it's on the other side of this drone actually, but yeah, that's that piece. There's along a similar vein, there's the top plastic piece, all designed in-house, and primarily the molding is done by a partner we have in Mexico. Some of it is done occasionally in India and Vietnam. It goes, more parts here, so various molded parts, tank lid, same story. Tank itself, primary tank molder for us, so this is the 13-gallon molded tank, primarily for liquid payloads for the Aries. This is made in Mexico. Landing gear tube, this is bent aluminum. This is also made from a partner in Mexico. So we got carbon fiber frame components. These are structural, so this is for the arm, for example. It's got a few cuts here for alignment, some holes for mounting of the motor assembly and whatnot. You got a rectangular one. This is in the center frame of the Aries, so it's more of a 90-degree angle shape here. And these are made both from American manufacturers. We have a number of vendors here in the States that can cut these for us, but also we utilize manufacturers in India for supply chain diversification and cost effectiveness. So now we're getting to the part where a lot of people are probably most interested. So what does Hylio buy from outside sources, and which of those are Chinese? So we are very open about this. We're not afraid to talk about this, but the propulsion system on our Aries drone and currently planned for our HYL series drones, the Pegasus, the Atlas, are going to be Hobbywing motors. So this is the X13 I'm holding. This is a motor with an ESC built in underneath it, and then they usually come with propellers. So Hobbywing supplies these. Frankly, they're good products. They're good motors. They perform well. And that is a Shenzhen, China-based company that has also offices and operations in Europe and North America as well. So we have, for example, an atomizer. This is a rotary atomizer that simply ejects atomized liquid, typically in the 50 to 500 micron range. And these are actually also provided by Hobbywing. So it's a similar product, as you might imagine, as their X13, just scaled down because it is a brushless motor that drives a disc that flings water out. So it's mechanically pretty simple. And then we also get some inert nozzle bodies. So this mounting nozzle structure here. And the nozzle tips we actually get from T-Jet. So that's American made. But this nozzle body is a Chinese product as well. I couldn't even tell you the factory off the top of my head that we get them from. But this is a very basic, just mounting rubber component. And the pumps, actually, these are 8-liter pumps made from Hobbywing. So again, decent, just a pump. Nothing crazy. The Hobbywing motor, ESC, the rotary atomizers, the pump that we buy from them, these are not critical electronic components. So they have no bearing on whether or not a product is NDAA compliant or blue listable, so on and so forth. These are considered dumb components, really just hunks of metal that do specific things on the drone. So as you can see, it's really not that many components. So in summary, looking at the parts we just talked about, the Hobbywing X13 motors, the rotary atomizers, the nozzle mounting structures, the pumps, we can be generous and say there's maybe 20, 25 Chinese parts on the Aries system. And that would be out of 1,460 total parts on the Aries, less than 2% of the components are Chinese by count. As far as SKUs goes, this is about 5 or 6 unique SKUs, and out of 360 total, this is less than, I should say a little bit more than 1% of the SKUs in the entire Aries kit. As far as things go in BOM cost, this is less than 10% of the BOM cost of the entire Aries unit, for example. So it's not a significant cost portion of the drone, but it is a component that we're getting from this outside source. So along those lines, Motor sourcing is basically entirely from China for any company, not just Hylio, but for Tesla, for EVs, for any car company, really any brushless electric motors typically are coming from China because they have the magnets in the refining in the manufacturing capabilities to produce these at scale. So they are the #1 producer and manufacturer of electric motors for nearly any company worldwide. However, Hylio, other private industry players in the US, and of course the government have very keenly noted this point and we want to work together to create a American-based infrastructure to have alternative sourcing, so at least non-Chinese sourcing for these components in these systems. So we're working with a company called ePropelled at the moment. They are based out of New Hampshire, great company that produces electric motor technology. And we believe by working with them and step by step here in building out the infrastructure that we can create a non-Chinese sourced alternative that's just as good, if not better, than the Hobbywing products to propel drones like our Ares, our other HYL series drones, and in fact, any drones or EVs in the Western market that don't want to rely on Chinese-made products. So we're working with ePropelled. Shout out to them, great company, and I think pretty soon we can make something happen and have an alternate supply chain for the propulsion components that's not from China. Another component that we buy to supplement our system is the battery packs and the chargers that charge those batteries. So we all know the battery industry is huge. Making batteries is a business all on its own. That's not something that Hylio does right now. What I have in front of me is the 18S 30 amp hour battery from a company called Tattoo. They also go by Gripal Inc. That's their North American marketing brand. But this is a China-based company that has operations in Europe and North America, but they do manufacture and they are based in China. So they make great battery products, great chargers. They supply a lot of different industries. So there's a number of different American and Western drone companies that are using their batteries. They're very prolific. They sell to the EV market and so on and so forth. So big established company, again, great products. Now, with that being said, we believe by working with a company close by to us, proud to say not even just a US company, but a Houston-based company called Kuller, that's Kulr. We believe that working with them, we can actually create a non-Chinese battery supply chain source that's just as good, if not better, and at competitive pricing. So Kuller, a little bit about them, very cool company. They do engineering, design, and manufacturing for a lot of really intense battery applications. So for NASA, for the Army, for the Defense Department, where there's really austere environments and conditional constraints on the batteries that you normally wouldn't see. So Kuller has a great engineering staff that can design for thermal management and really fine-tune the batteries for ultimate performance, even in really rough conditions and scenarios. So working with them, they're a great team. We really think that we can have a really competitive, non-Chinese based battery supply chain. So these are cells that are either from Taiwan or from Korea, put into batteries that Kuller is designing and manufacturing over at their facility here in Houston. I want to make a clarifying point here that the motors and the batteries which we purchase from other vendors, these are not considered critical electronic components or CECs according to the US government. Therefore, they have no bearing at all on whether or not your product can be NDAA compliant or blue listed for that matter. So essentially these are considered dumb or at least not intelligent components in the eyes of the government, meaning they can't transmit data in such a way that's potentially dangerous from a cybersecurity perspective. So we use them now. Our drones are still NDAA compliant and blue listable, even despite using these. I also want to take this opportunity to announce that we will begin as a company selling things at the component level. There are a lot of other up and coming American drone entrepreneurs in the space. We're very excited to see that. We strongly encourage more American-based, domestic-based competition in the space. I think that's ultimately good for everybody, pushes us all to be better, and of course it gives the consumers more options. So if you're an entrepreneur in the space trying to build out a system, you can come to Hylio. We have NDAA compliant, high quality, drone industry focused components like the radars I've mentioned, the GPSs, other avionics chipsets and boards that we're going to design in the future. These are all very focused for the EV and the drone industry, so they could be extremely useful affordable, and again, of course, NDAA compliant, which is important in this day and age in the industry. So doesn't stop just at the boards, but our ground link, for example, a control unit, a computer with joysticks built around it that we designed in-house with excellent cooling and excellent battery life for its performance. That is something that we would be willing to work with you as a manufacturer to integrate to your system. So you have a great control unit in ground station to operate your drones with. So we're totally sympathetic to companies that are starting out like we were 11 years ago. And when you're at that phase where you can't design everything in-house and you can't manufacture things in-house, we are happy to provide things for you so we can get you over the hump and you can grow and be a big company and do whatever you want in the future, right? But until then, if you need the NDAA compliant components and just really purpose-built things that are reliable in the field, tried and true, tested on our products, then we're the people to come to. So I'll put a link in the video below. You can reach out to our sales team and inquire about getting some of our components. The software component of our product stack is very important, arguably more important than the physical drones themselves, right? So I have to talk a little bit about the software. I want to take this opportunity to clear up, I think, some misconceptions or misunderstandings people might have about the software development and where it sits in the greater drone community. So we need to make a distinction between two things. There is firmware on the drone itself. This is machine level code that's written in C++ primarily. That actually gives you a digital estimation from averaging sensor results and applying some filtering to that and basically doing what's called state estimation to have an understanding of where the drone is in 3D space. So this is how the drone actually knows that left is left, right is right, forward is forward, etc. Basic stuff that's like literally and figuratively under the hood. You don't realize it as the operator, not interacting with that directly if it's done right. That's just kind of the operating system on the base level, machine level that the drone is operating on. So here at Hylio, we utilize Arducopter for the firmware level code on the flight controller. And that is an open source community, open source project that we contribute to. We've been working with them for 11 plus years, the entire length of the company. So they're really good, really awesome team of developers from all over the world that contribute to that. We do as well. And we did branch off from their public fork years and years and years ago, and we added stuff specifically for spraying and other things very specific to our industry. But otherwise, like most of that code base is from that open source Arducopter project. Now, on the other side, the vast majority of the interaction that you do with Hylio's drones as the operator is through our flagship software product, which we call Agrosol Ground Control Station, or GCS. So Agrosol GCS is 100% completely written in-house by our CTO, Nikhil Dixit. He started it even before the company was born 11 years ago. And he's got a team of 20 plus engineers and developers that help him with it every single day, make it better, add features, add infrastructure. That is all 100% again written in-house, developed in-house. We own all of it from the design level up. We develop, we maintain it every day. We add features. This has nothing to do with, not directly with the firmware I had mentioned from Arducopter. So this is all proprietary in-house Hylio stuff that is NDAA compliant and soon to be blue listed. So everything happens here. The mission planning, the GIS tools, the agronomic tools, command and control of the drone, executing, planning the missions, reviewing the data afterwards, cloud features, sharing data, compliance reporting, all that is done in our flagship software here. Now, I think one other confusing element is that people might look at Agrosol GCS, and I've heard on occasion, oh, like, is this just a reskinned version of an open source mission planner software like Mission Planner or Q Ground Control? And the answer is a definitive no. This has nothing to do with those. The miscommunication here or misconception is that they both use similar, or I should say the same communication protocol. So there are industry standard published communication protocols for drones, such as DroneCAN or Mavlink. Now, we all use these because these are information protocols that, if you keep them standard, allow you to have sensors work on different platforms across different companies and so on and so forth. So these are simply the communication protocols and data streams that are aligned and published in such a way where everybody can access them. And that's the same way we communicate over the radio link with our drones and our products in general. So that is similar across all the platforms that are operating using Mavlink, DroneCAN, these other open source protocols. And that's by design, right? That's so we can have interoperability across the systems. But That in no way means that Agrosol GCS is a reskinned mission planner or Q ground control. It is not. It is a completely 100% Hylio product that we conceived of and wrote here in-house. So that's where the similarities end. Of course, there's some just general similarities to the way you use them because they're both operating drones. So in both scenarios, using Agrosol GCS or one of these third-party open source mission planners, you're planning out a map, you're clicking takeoff, you're clicking arm, you're monitoring the drone's vital signs. These are all conceptually similar things, but we just do it differently than they do it, and we all just use the same communication protocols. So it's a bit nuanced. I wanted to take this opportunity to try to shed some light on that. I understand that it can be like a little convoluted, but hopefully this clears up just a little bit of that subject. A quick note on NDAA compliance, or National Defense Authorization Act compliance. This could be a whole other video, so I'm going to keep it somewhat brief, but I just want to reemphasize that all of Hylio's products, even our AG series, since about 2020, the AG210, AG216, etc., they were already NDAA compliant, and our Ares unit, as well as the other HYL series drones coming out this year and next year, are also all NDAA compliant. So what does that mean? NDAA compliance means that your drones do not use what the government defines as covered technologies or products. So a covered technology or product is a product or technology or service that comes from China, Russia, Iran, the so-called adversary nations to the United States. So what the United States wants to make sure is that if you have a drone product that you're going to sell to the government for use by the government or federally funded agencies, so that could even be on the local and the state level, they are trying to make sure that they don't have these technology pieces that come from these adversary nations. So Hylio's products, whether that be the traditional AG series or our new HYL series with the Ares and so on, they are all completely NDAA compliant. And furthermore, the Ares and our other HYL series drones come out are going to be blue listed. So the Ares and the ground link controller and the Agrosol GCS software that power everything, these are all in the evaluation process right now for blue listing. So what does blue listing mean? Well, the blue list is a list that the DIU of the Department of Defense, or I should say Department of War, formerly Department of Defense, it's a list that they have on their website which lets government purchasers know that, hey, these are all pre-approved and inspected by the US government for safe and legal and cyber-secure purchasing and operation. So the blue list audit process itself is a process where you as a company apply. So we work with the government and the third-party assessors. They inspect not only our drone itself for vulnerabilities, but the ground station device, so the ground link in our case, the software Agrosol GCS. They inspect all of that for cyber vulnerabilities and generally just safety all around. But not only are they looking at the products, but they're also looking at the company. So they're actually assessing Hylio overall and seeing if Hylio has hygienic IT processes and cybersecure infrastructure in general. So when it comes to even who has access to certain things in the company and how are we protecting emails from phishing and hacking, all of that is included in this assessment. So when it's all said and done, the DIU gives you a stamp. They say you're on the blue list now, you get put on the website, you get put on their official list. And that is, again, a certification with the government that you have been inspected and audited to meet their strict cybersecurity standards and vulnerability standards. So you are now safe and legal to operate and purchase for US government and US government funded and affiliated entities. Thank you everyone for watching. Again, my name is Arthur Erickson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Hylio. I hope that this explanation, albeit a bit long, was insightful and helps you understand where we are as a company, what we do on the design and manufacturing level, and also where we plan on going as this industry evolves. So this was a rather complicated topic, and if you need any clarifications or want to learn more, please feel free to go to our website. That's hylio.com or hyl.io, or call us at any moment. Contact number, sales number you can find on our site. So we're always willing to have conversations with each and every one of you and talk about product, technology, supply chains, government regulations, anything that you'd think would be relevant for your operation. So reach out, and thanks for watching.